Hello and welcome to the big picture. The monsoon session of the parliament, scheduled for 3 weeks, is set to begin from tomorrow. Like the weather outside here in Delhi, the session also seems to be wrapped in clouds, going by the intentions expressed by both the government and the opposition so far. Coming as it does after a highly successful budget session of the parliament, this could be quite a dampener. The budget session witnessed some highly impressive output. For one, both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha functioned 123% and 101% respectively in the budget session, something that had not happened for over 15 years. Even the questionnaire in both houses bettered 15-year-old records. However, the upcoming session may not come anywhere near the last session. The controversies which have cropped up between the budget session and now is casting a shadow, as both the government and opposition show no signs of relenting on their stand. While government has also some important legislations on its agenda, like the GST, land acquisition, among others, it will have to first weather the storm the opposition is planning to raise. So how will the government face and, if possible, overcome these challenges? We will discuss this today with Ashok Tandon, senior journalist, PDT Achary, former Secretary General Lok Sabha, Smita Gupta, Associate Editor of The Hindu, and KV Prasad, Associate Editor of The Tribune. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Tandon, what are the kind of challenges which the government is facing? Even today, just now, we heard that the meetings took place and both seem to be sticking to their stand.
See, I see the coming monsoon session in the light of the forthcoming Bihar Assembly election.
Okay.
See, the election in Bihar is so crucial. So therefore, the opposition as well as the government, they are trying to position themselves from the point of view of Bihar. Now, here I would like to say, look at the statement today given by Sharad Yadav and Ram Gopal Yadav. So they are focusing more on the land acquisition bill, where they say if the government can make some adjustment, well, we will ensure that the house runs smoothly. Whereas the Congress has almost made it clear that they would not like the house to run. And in the all-party meeting also, there were not many takers of the line that the house should not be allowed to function. The reason being that the alliance in Bihar would not like Congress to play the role of main opposition in parliament, because in Bihar, they are a junior partner to the alliance. So I think the parties...
Almost non-existent partners.
Well, at least junior partner. So I think the parties to be watched in the session tomorrow would be JDU and Samajwadi Party, because they have greater stakes in Bihar. So therefore, obviously, the session is going to be stormy, but the government benches, I think they would like to divide the opposition and also not allow Congress party to play the role of a major opposition, which will suit the other opposition parties who have greater stakes in Bihar.
In Bihar. Smita, would you agree with that? That is there a division among the opposition now? Because this is what we have been hearing, that has the government been successful in dividing the opposition?
Well, just to take you back to the budget session in the first half, if you remember, when 14 political parties led by the Congress party took, walked to Rashtrapati Bhavan on the issue of the land bill, I think that was the highest moment of opposition unity.
Peak of opposition unity.
And I think Mr. Tandon rightly says that if the government is not willing to go back on any of the things, whether it is on compromise on the land bill or on the GST, or indeed on these corruption cases that have floated up, because the Congress is asking for the resignations of these chief ministers, etc., then its only option is to divide the opposition, because it's only then that it has a chance of running parliament. So I think that he is right to point out that you are hearing these kind of so-called, from the opposition point of view, discordant voices.
Prasad, are you also hearing those discordant voices?
Well, there always will be, Girish. Let's not forget that on the issues, parties have their own view. In fact, even on the land bill, there are different voices have already been heard, not just the first time. And GST itself, the states are divided. the AIDMK opposes it, the DMK opposes it, but probably the BJP supports it. So, you know, within the opposition too, there are issues on which they see there is unity of purpose, and on certain issues they have their own take. So I don't think, because they're largely guided by their own political ideology and own political calculations. So I think that division does exist, and the government of the day, if it works with the basic idiom, which is in parliamentary democracy, that the opposition can have its say, but the government will have its way. So I guess these things fall in line.
That's interesting. Mr. Achary, you know, we have had this very impressive budget session last time. What do you attribute it to, that kind of success, which, you know, you sat in that very hot seat for quite some time and witnessed everything from close quarters. What was the difference this time? 15-year-old records broken, and you see that happening again this time.
See, these contentious legislations were referred to committees and all that. So there was no occasion to raise that issue again on the floor of the House. And the question of the land acquisition bill being passed, of course, that was...
in Lok Sabha, it got passed.
It got passed, but in the Rajya Sabha, you know, they referred it to the committee and all that. When that legislation or that land acquisition bill was not on the floor of the House, then, of course, on other things, you know, there was a fair measure of agreement between the opposition and the government. So things could go on. So during budget session, and particularly budget session, you know, the emphasis is basically on the financial business.
Right.
That is the thing. Other contentious issues come up only later. A major part of the budget session is devoted to transacting the financial business. And on that, there won't be much of an opposition.
Even opposition
It won't be there. It won't be there because whether it is the finance bill or appropriation and demands for grants and all that, there will be good discussion on those.
Which happened
issues.
last time, actually.
Yes, that happened. But this time, as you rightly said, and other panelists have also said, there are many contentious issues. As far as the land acquisition bill is concerned, see, the opposition is more or less united, more or less. And on that issue, certainly, they can put the government on the mat. And in the Rajya Sabha, it is extremely difficult.
One second. The situation is this, that the land acquisition bill was passed in Lok Sabha, went to Rajya Sabha, now it has gone to a joint select committee. Select committee will have to come out with a report and place it in the Rajya Sabha.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it has to get passed there in whatever form.
Yeah.
And then it has to come back to Lok Sabha.
Yes, yes.
So
it has
it's a pretty long process.
Yes, of course, it's a long process. But the question is whether the committee is ready to bring the report before the House.
Right.
That is also not very clear. But then so far as the Congress party, the main opposition
What about
party,
GST?
GST, I think on GST there won't be much of a problem. Because the Congress party, as I understand from the press reports, is opposing that 1% taxation for the manufacturing states.
Right.
I think that is the only issue on which the Congress has some opposition. Otherwise, the Congress agrees with most of the provisions because it was their own bill.
It was their own bill. It was
their own bill. So on that issue, I don't think there would be any kind of opposition. That is the thing.
Okay.
See,
But
on the land acquisition, may I
Yes.
point out, see, the Ahluwalia committee has already sought extension. And there are likely,
doubts that they may not give the report by the end of the
And the
session.
indications are that they may seek another 2 weeks extension. Which will take the land acquisition committee
last
report
week of
beyond the monsoon session.
Or maybe the last week of the monsoon session.
Yeah, and therefore it will give the government leverage to postpone the land acquisition bill to the winter session, and by the time the Bihar election also
Well,
would be
it
over.
would be over.
So therefore the main contentious issue on which most opposition are united is the land acquisition bill. And once it is out of the parliamentary agenda in the current monsoon session, obviously things may be easier for the government.
Okay, but Smita, you know, there are other issues. The Lalit Modi controversy, the Vyapam scam. You think these are issues on which the opposition is united?
Well, certainly the Congress means to make a big issue out of it, and some of the other parties will also be forced because, you know, nobody can support issues of corruption, you know. So I can't see anybody coming up and defending the government. Maybe they might just keep a little quiet. But I think it's going to be very, very tricky. I don't know. I mean, that's why yesterday and today there have been there was a senior level BJP meeting yesterday. Tonight, Prime Minister is also going to speak to all the NDA allies. The idea is, how do we gather the defense? What is our defense against why Shivraj Chauhan and Vasundhara Raje are still chief ministers?
And also, Congress is also demanding resignations of Sushma
Swaraj. It's going to be tough, but I think to get back to what Mr. Tandon said, the Bihar elections are there. So they don't want to admit that they have made any mistakes. So they'll probably say that, there's a CBI inquiry, Mr. Chauhan is actually the main whistleblower, those kind of...
Mr. Tandon, what is the...
One other point, and I don't know so much about Rajasthan, but I do know that in Madhya Pradesh, on the ground, it hasn't made much of an impact.
It hasn't. It hasn't.
No.
Mr. Tandon, what would be the difference?
See, all these issues...
Because these are the same kind of issues which the BJP had taken and, held up parliament for several sessions in the past.
Yes, on all these issues, I think there is division within the opposition ranks also. The Congress is trying to make it an issue that they will not relent till all of them resign.
Right.
Whereas Sharad Yadav today has indicated, well, there should be discussion under some rule, and let us put across our viewpoint on the floor of the House. And this is one area where the government also is willing to discuss.
Would be very much
the Prime Minister also today has indicated that we are willing to have discussion on all these issues under any rule which the government opposition want. So I think if the Congress takes this high ground that we will not relent or will not allow the session to function till all these resignations are in place, I think there they are likely to face isolation. Because most opposition parties, they know once you take a high ground that nothing short of resignations, that means the entire session will be washed out. Most other opposition parties, especially the smaller parties and the regional parties like Telangana parties or even BSP, they also have various issues to be highlighted. So I think on the issue of demanding resignation, otherwise we will not allow the session to run. On this issue, Congress may face isolation, and whereas most other parties would like to discuss all these corruption issues on the floor of the House through some discussion rule.
Mr. Achary, taking maximalist positions is what happens right from the, we have seen this happen.
Yeah,
but what kind of, to where they will come and compromise is what is the...
See, in Parliament, it is rather unwise, I must say, to take a maximalist position on these issues. For example, if these people...
that's what we have seen several
if
times.
These people do not resign, then we will not allow the House. See, allowing the House, suppose the other opposition parties are not with them. And as Mr. Tandon has rightly said, if they get isolated, that would be a strategic failure on the part of the Congress.
Right.
I don't know whether they will go to that extent because they will go beyond that line from where you cannot come back. That would be a very unwise kind of thing. In Parliament, it doesn't happen. This kind of maximalist position, I don't think anybody takes. There is always a certain flexibility. That is the thing.
So
and
far,
there is
we have
always
not
a ground
seen that.
for retreat.
At least from the statements being made by Congress leaders or even some of the opposition leaders, they are sticking to that maximum. But Prasad, what is the confidence in the government that they'll be able to ride the storm?
Well, I think they've all decided to close ranks, and what we heard yesterday and what we heard today, the Parliamentary Affairs Minister very categorically stating that the three people, no union minister has committed any wrong or anything that needs for them to step down. So that's very clear that the party and the government is backing the very people the Congress has said it wants to go. But I also feel that here the Congress is looking to pay back the Bharatiya Janata Party in the same manner in which it was at the receiving end. They are trying and stick some dirt onto the BJP by trying to say that, look, you're not moving on the positions you've been talking about all this while. So that's the effort. While I think the inherent risk of being isolated does always remain, but the Congress in its own leadership that's happening around is looking for its own identity to build on as an opposition party. And it does enjoy that superiority in Rajya Sabha. though of course if the divisions that work through. And also remember, I think there is some element of resentment within the Congress party in Parliament that not very many from the government come to the negotiations. It's like you take a position and then it's like you're confronting each other. Instead of cooperating and trying to... So if Congress has started from this maximalist position, is there a room for negotiations? Yes, in parliamentary democracy, it does happen. But how do you go forward? That's the question. That doesn't seem to be looking. That is some option which is not being seen.
No, I think you have a point there, Mr. Tandon. He has a point there. Government has made it very clear that it is not going to compromise on anything. And is that the way is that the way to do things as far as the government is concerned? Because it has to run. It is its responsibility to run the parliament. It has so many important businesses to do. But if it takes this on, it is also taking a maximalist position there.
See, let's not forget one thing, that this government enjoys absolute majority in the Lok Sabha.
Right.
See, opposition has a very strong weapon in its hand when they demand a discussion under the rule where voting is there. Unfortunately for the opposition now, that weapon is not with them.
Seeking that in Lok Sabha makes no sense.
So therefore the government, in fact the Prime Minister also today said that we are willing to have discussion under any rule. That means they won't mind even if there is a voting on that particular resolution. So that is the advantage which the government has got. But coming to your point, the thing is that the government can't be forced to ask the minister to resign just because the opposition making a political issue out of it. So therefore...
Is it just a political issue?
No, the thing is...
Isn't there moral questions involved in this?
Girish, the thing is, in parliamentary system, you have to score a point on the floor of the House. As I said earlier, the strongest weapon the opposition in parliamentary democracy has got is either a vote of no confidence, vote of confidence, or a rule under which voting is there, you can defeat the government. But here the government is in a very strong position. So, short of that, what the opposition will expect? So, stalling the proceedings. That is the only weapon they have got in their hand, that we will not allow the House to run. And that is where Congress party may face isolation. So therefore, I think after a couple of days of disruption, there will be a realization within the opposition ranks. Don't forget that there are regional parties also.
No, but you don't expect the government to give in any way on these issues.
See, in a parliamentary democratic system, the government can give in that we are open for any kind of a motion or any kind of a debate. So this is the maximum the government can concede, and here the government is willing. Let them bring a vote of no confidence, let them a censure motion, or let them bring discussion under rule where there is a voting. Nothing beyond that. The government, has to function within the rules of the procedure.
Absolutely. Smita, but this is not just about voting or, procedures and things like that. So there is, from what Mr. Tandon is saying, is there a feeling in the BJP that this is a storm which we can ride out? But what is the political price which they will have to pay?
See, the BJP, of course, is hoping it can ride out this storm. But let's just take one example. The BJP has more or less decided that this land bill is not going to happen. Last week you had that meeting, Prime Minister and the Chief Ministers, etc. He's talked about consensus or leaving
and also leaving it to the states.
So now the GST bill is a very key bill that they hope to pass. Now it's a constitution amendment bill. It's not even a simple majority.
Right.
So Lok Sabha, fine, they'll get it through. But they have to make some kind of concession, get the Congress on board, because it's okay, Congress can get isolated, but without Congress's votes in the Rajya Sabha, how will they get that GST bill? And it's no point saying that, because the Congress will pull out not only that 1%, they pull out 3-4 other reasons why they don't want to do it. They can, in other ways, disrupt the House. So I think, even if you have a majority in the Lok Sabha, the government has to negotiate, has to make some kind of concessions to the, opposition,
to the opposition,
however small it may be.
Mr. Achary?
See,
You have seen so many
Yes.
of these kind of things between.
yes, I've seen
how,
so many such situations.
So the government at some point of time has to yield some ground.
I would say that there has to be a dialogue going between the government and the opposition, and that is a must. Otherwise, the parliamentary system will not run smoothly. Even during Indira Gandhi's time, when she didn't have much of a liking for the opposition, everybody knows that. But even at that time, I know the dialogue was there, was taking place between the ruling party and the opposition.
Whatever opposition was.
Yeah, in fact, I used to mention the name of Mr. K. Raghuramaiah,
Right.
who was always seen on the opposition benches. Most of the time.
He was the Parliamentary Affairs Minister.
Parliamentary Affairs Minister.
Although Indira Gandhi had absolute, two-thirds majority, she didn't have to do that. But, there is a purpose behind it, to take the opposition also on board on many of the issues, important issues. And so that is the requirement. In a parliamentary democracy, if you want the parliament to run smoothly, then you must have this dialogue going between the government and the opposition. And most of the issues, from my experience, I can say, most of the issues can be resolved if both the parties sit together.
Are accommodative. Of
Yeah,
each other's
that is the thing. In which
concerns.
I would say that the involvement of the Prime Minister should also be there.
That's
Because
right.
if the Prime Minister is involved in that process, I think that will greatly facilitate a smooth running of the House.
Absolutely.
That is my,
In fact, it's
feeling.
very Prasad. Is what Mr. Achary, the point that the Prime Minister should get involved. I think in the recent past, during the UPA period, there were a lot of times, there were a lot of discussions. We have held those discussions here itself, where we found that the PM was not getting, the Prime Minister was not getting involved in some of the matters, because of which there used to be prolonged problems in the Parliament. You think the present Prime Minister is willing to get down and talk to the opposition, as Mr. Achary suggests?
Well, that's for him to say, but just to add to the point, if you remember in the previous occasion, we had a very senior parliamentarian in Mr. Pranab Mukherjee,
Right.
who was negotiating on behalf of the government. He was the leader of the House, who had the stature to walk across the aisle and talk to people. And in fact, people would come into his room to discuss issues, and you could see it all the time happening in Parliament. And of course, he had the ability to walk across even to the Prime Minister's office and say what he wanted to say. But that could be a different arrangement. But also, let me just bring back one more point you're mentioning. On the GST bill, the Congress has already declared its 5 demands it has put on board are non-negotiable, whereby it's very clear that 1% tax, there are exemptions to alcohol and petrol, and all these issues that are. And by the way, this was raised by former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh when he addressed the state chief
Of the Congress Party.
of the Congress Party. So once again, the Congress is very clear on board on GST that look, all these 5. So that means if at all you want to enter into negotiations, let's discuss at these 5 points. They are on the table. And they're also very cut up with this very idea of a deadline that has been placed that, okay, we don't need to, if we don't do it, we're not going to roll it by April 2016. So there are many issues, the side scripts that were running. In fact, on the land bill, the fact that the Niti Aayog issue at the governing council was discussed on it made the Congress stay away, because they said once
The select committee.
Yeah, there's a committee which is going into it.
Yeah, that's right.
Select committee. So,
Yeah.
this is kind of, the opposition felt this is not the way in which you're going to do business with them.
So, Mr. Tandon, political price. You think the BJP is not worried about the political price it may pay for being seen as adamant?
Before that, I would like to comment on what Mr. Achary said. Today, there were 2 all-party meetings. One convened by the Prime Minister himself,
Right.
the other convened by the Speaker.
Right.
And the Prime Minister has attended both these meetings. So therefore, I don't
So
think...
he has shown his
Yes, see...
clear intentions to be part of the process of...
Yeah, he is, and today he attended the Speaker's all-party meeting also, and that goes on to show that, and his today's speech in Vigyan Bhavan, where he talked of conciliation and across-the-board discussion with the opposition on all issues. So I think he is a Prime Minister who is willing to accommodate the opposition, but within the framework of the parliamentary rules. Now, coming to your second point of the
Political price.
the thing is, parliamentary procedure has to be seen in the context of the parliamentary rules. So opposition will obviously play politics. All oppositions have played politics in the past as well. So therefore, I feel opposition is entitled to play its political role within the parliament, like the Congress would, as their strategy is, to stall the parliamentary proceedings. Well, maybe they feel that they are handicapped because of their numbers. So the best way would be to stall the proceeding. But at the same time, there are other opposition parties which would not like to, number one, allow the Congress to play the role of a major opposition and also set the agenda which suits them politically. So therefore, I think all political parties, including the ruling BJP, they know what they are doing because all of them, the focus is on the Bihar election.
Okay. Smita, political price. It is not just the political price which the ruling party will have to pay or may have to pay, but it's also the opposition parties which will have to think how long can they stall these things. But we have seen entire sessions being stalled in the past.
Well, I don't know. I think the Congress, having got this issue and with the its history with the BJP over the last, the 10 years of the UPA rule, it looks very, very unlikely that they're going to give up on, their demands. I mean, whether it is the demands for the resignations of the chief ministers or whether it is for, getting the land bill that they want, getting those 5 points on the GST bill, because they also have to set some agenda. What are, before the people, what are they going to say? If they're going to give in to everything.
Prasad, the kind of aggression displayed by some of the Congress leaders, especially Rahul Gandhi, is now showing quite a bit of aggression. Is this something, a planned strategy? Is this something with that they think that they can carry on for this session if they don't get what they want?
It looks like, because if you remember, just last week, Rahul Gandhi, in one of his tours to, I think it was in Rajasthan, when he mentioned very clearly, come what may, the land bill will not be passed. He was very emphatic. He made a public declaration. And there were some other comments which obviously attracted a lot of criticism. But the fact is, once the vice president, who's obviously seen as the next president of the party, if he is taking a very strong line, it bound to have an effect on the party. Of course, there was, in fact, even on the insurance bill, if you remember, which was passed by the Congress support, there was not, while the senior leaders went with it, and the insurance bill was passed because it was essentially a bill which was bought by the UPA, there were still voices, murmurs as to why the government was why the opposition facilitated, or Congress in particular facilitated passage. So this is bound to increase, as I see.
Okay. I think on that note, from what we have discussed today, we'll have to keep our fingers crossed and see what will happen from tomorrow. But the first few days, the disruption seems to be inevitable. But how it will be resolved and how the government will overcome this challenge, we'll have to wait and watch. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue, The Big Picture, same time tomorrow.